They said there's no doubt you'll surely lose. Go ahead and sing your tune. We didn't listen, stayed right on the truth. And now we're on the right side of the news.
Morning, poke the hornet's nest. We're on, we're here, we're not gay, we're proud of it. So, good morning, Leslie.
Good morning.
I'm so happy to be here. Leslie's in a really good mood because she's got a boyfriend. That's okay. That's good, really. A lot better than a girlfriend.
That I would not have, yep.
So anyway, yesterday on Poke the Hornet's Nest, and I want to get this out there because I advertised Mountaintop Media / Reading, because you never know where you're going to get if you just have Mountaintop Media. I advertise that on KQMS. On Sunday mornings at 9, Doug Jenke and I are on, and I wanted to let you know that it's KQMS.com 105.7. So I advertise back and forth, and nobody feels left out. And we had a really good show yesterday. And one thing I brought up is the way the Record Searchlight reported on the salaries of people, the top management in the city of Reading. And all they write down there is, let's see, Barry Tippin got 300 and, here it is right now. Barry Tippin's salary, Ron Eichley, was $231,000. Barry Tippin was $320,000. Let's see, Nicholas Zettel was $317,000. So that's their salaries. What they didn't report is the other. And what the other is, I don't know, but this base salary for Ron Eichley, his base salary is $231,000, but his other salary, extra credits or whatever, is $255,000. So in essence, he made $487,000. That was his total salary. And then you have benefits. His benefits was $67,600, and that's health and stuff like that. And then his pension, the unfunded pension liabilities, was $107,000. So the total compensation is actually $662,000, not the $231,000 that was reported. So I hope everybody understands that. That's to cost us. And a lot of people don't know what the unfunded pension liabilities are, so I'm going to explain it to you right now. The city, each city and county, and each entity has its own pension fund that is managed through CalPERS. And so the city's CalPERS, they make investments. And sometimes their investments go south. So let's just take $100,000 and say this was their investment for last year, and they lost 35%. Well, if it's you and I, it's tough luck. We lost 35%. But if it's the CalPERS and the city employees, the taxpayer has to make up their losses. That's what the unfunded pension liabilities are. We're making up for their losses that their financial advisor made. Is that clear? Is that understandable?
Yeah.
So, it's just one thing after another with them. And last year, the city paid, this is fiscal year 23 through 24. They go from June to July, or July till June. And they paid $36 million pension funds. Now, roughly a third of that, less than a third, was a regular service, a regular pension that they have to pay, kind of like Social Security, like us normal people that aren't the royalty class. And then the other 2/3, that's the loss that we had to make up. And, it's year after year after year, and it only gets bigger. So when they say that we don't want our infrastructure, our roads fixed or whatever because we won't give them an extra tax, we actually gave them plenty of tax money It's just that they have hijacked it and it's going someplace else now.
Right. Well, and they had that one guy when they were going over the budget stuff that was from Mount Shasta or McLeod area. And he had actually figured out how to budget for all of this stuff and how to kind of fix how we're tallying and how we're predicting the spending so that the unfunded liabilities had their own category and no longer became a burden every year. And he had said, I'll come down and I'll show you guys how to do it. Like, I'm here to help.
They just blew him off.
Everybody but Tanessa blew him off.
Yes. His name is Mike. He was doing a accountant work up in McLeod.
Yeah.
And he's quite well known around town. I for some reason, I have a block on his last name every time I try and think of it. I can't think of it. So anyway, that's what's really put us in a bind. And you take some of the retired people like Leonard Modi, he's getting over $200,000 a year. Alan Long, he's getting $154,000 a year, plus his $85,000 a year salary for being on the Board of Supervisors. That's another thing that needs to be explained. They gave themselves a $30,000 raise. It went from roughly $55,000 to $85,000. But you know what? They hadn't had a raise for 20 years.
Right.
So you factor that in, and we can attract people that...
Well, and I'm just going to say this, because when you're making the amount that they were making and you are basically doing a full-time job, some of these guys that are on the Board of Supervisors are putting in 60, 80 hours a week, running around, taking care of everything, answering every phone call, meeting with everybody that they can. They are taking their job serious, doing it well, reading through the 900 pages of board meeting packets. I know, because I read through it, and I know that it is a full-time job. And when you're not paying them enough to make it their full-time job, that's when you have situations like Tim, who comes in, says one thing, and then all of a sudden quits his job, gets, a full-time job working for a church that has a whole 9 people, and then make that math do math.
Are you talking about Tim Garman?
Yes.
Oh, my God. He worked hard. He almost got a fire hydrant for IGO.
Oh, almost?
Well, he worked on it real hard.
I'm just saying that's what happens, is if we want to keep corruption out of the government, we need to pay them a livable wage to be able to do a full-time job. And if you look at the salary schedule for the county, they are still on the very last page. They had not gotten a raise in over 20 years. They are still the lowest paid for the highest position in the county.
That's right. And, on top of that, they have to fight these idiot lawsuits. The idiot stick, what's his name, Gorder. He's suing the county for a contract they signed with Chris Street for, I think it was $40,000. Chris Street earned that much money 10 times over with the grant work he did, the finding the intricacies of putting a medical college in the county as opposed to the city, just on the other side of the street, how we would qualify for so much more, and that kind of stuff. And he's got a lawsuit going, and the county has to hire outside counsel to fight it. It's cost us hundreds of $1,000s now, and there's no sense in it, absolutely no sense in it. And the reason we hire outside attorneys for that is because the in-house attorneys are versed in government law. They're not versed in going out fighting litigation, civil litigation, just like they're not versed in being a criminal lawyer. It's like a doctor. They have different specialties.
Well, and you got to look at the fact that what they're working on is going through the contracts that the county is already put into, right? So they're going through, and that is why when you look at the city of Anderson, you look at the city of Reading and the budget deficits that both of them have, and then you look at the county and you look how we're sitting kind of pretty. We have reserves, we have, a balanced budget, everything's looking good because they're going through these contracts with a fine-tooth comb and they're saying, this one's working, this one's not, what is the details on this? And that's what they're doing, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, Kevin Christ, the one that pointed him in that direction. He wants to know what kind of bang we're getting for a buck. And if we're not getting any bang, why are we still giving them bucks? Let's get rid of that and go someplace where we can do some good. Am I right about that?
You're so right. And you know what? It has been really a joint effort. Kevin Cry leading that. Patrick Jones before that.
Yes.
He really started questioning local government. Chris Kellstrom is still continually helping with that. And Corky Harmon is asking really great questions and really just having their back on supporting, looking into what is happening with waste and abuse. And the thing is, he's been a business owner for years in our community, and he knows when you have these bloated contracts, he's done government work in the work that he's in.
Sure.
So the thing is, you have that going on, but it's the people who want to get up there and complain about, oh, your election commission costs us so much money, yet I'm going to sue the county and cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Oh, your raises cost us so much money, but we're going to do a recall, which costs the county how much money? Oh, your this cost us so much money, but every time we have to sit and listen to you whine for 3 minutes on every single topic cost us how much money, right? Like,
how many potholes could have been filled while you guys are up there bloviating?
Right?
That was Don Duckett's. We could have filled potholes instead of listening to these guys up here. I think she's talking about me. Anyway, Aaron Reisner wants to take back our seat. She's running on fiscal responsibilities.
She wants to take the seat back for the establishment that lost it fair and square because they were making us suck.
That's right. Because we're broke because of them. I don't recall her ever turning down a raise. Has she always voted for every raise that came along in the city?
Well, not only that, but let's talk about all of the funding that she got during COVID for her little coffee shops that she never shut down because they were considered, essential businesses. Yet she took all of the funding for it, refused to give her employees health care during one of the worst medical crises ever. And also, after the guy was stabbed or shot or whatever by the Taco Bell right there next to one of her downtown shops, parents of these, because they're young workers.
Oh, yes.
They're over 18, but these are kids, right? I know. The house next door,
18's the new, or 30's the new 18.
Right? So the house next door to me is 7 kids that all work at Dutch Bros and go to Bethel, and they're the sweetest kids. They're hilarious. I love them. But they're kids. That's what they are, right?
Yes.
And one of them, I'm friends with the mom. And so when they all moved in, I said, I'm so happy to have you here. But if you throw a party, I'm calling your mom and we're going to have a bigger party and we're going to embarrass you. So, just don't interrupt my sleep and we're good. But, they're great kids. But the thing is, they're kids, right? And so when that guy got stabbed or shot or whatever it was, I think it was stabbed, a bunch of parents went to her and said, can you put a second person on your shop, downtown at night, so that they're not just sitting ducks out here? You've got young kids.
Yes.
Well, and at the time, one of the kids that is like a kid to me was working there. And I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. You just took how many thousands of dollars from the state and you can't put a second person on at night to make sure that they're safe?
Well, she did put a second person on. I read this in a comment. I think it was on a news cafe. That liberal rag that ran out of other people's money, so they had to fold. Now they're printing recipes, I think. But this one comment said that this guy stops in every morning at the Dutch Brothers across from the Goodwill Rescue Mission, and there's one girl there. And he stopped this one morning, and there was 2, and he says, well, how come you got 2 here today? Well, there's a busload of out-of-town homeless being dropped off, so we wanted to be safer. And she's going to attack homelessness. She's going to cure the homeless problem.
Would you stop spreading misinformation? They don't drop buses full of homeless or illegals or any of that here in Shasta County. It just is blatantly untrue. If you ask any of the failed recall people, every time somebody says something or shows a video of it or posts photos of it, they will just tell you it's untrue. That's not happening in Shasta County.
Let me tell you what Matt Plummer told me when I questioned him about it. Point in time count statistic, the data shows that 97% of the homeless in Reading are local. So I sent him Jason Miller's phone number, Charlie, the sign guy over on Bocelli Lane, Annie, where he could find it on the videos for the supervisors. These people with their own eyes have seen busloads dumped off. He didn't have the time to contact them.
No. You know what else he didn't have the time to do? Is he had sworn when they had that town hall for the mental health facility that all of the answers would be all of the questions would be answered. And if you did not get your question asked and answered at the town hall, he would be sending out emails with all the answers to those questions. And guess what? Never happened. And so when that facility never got funded and Aaron's trying to do a whole political campaign against Kevin on how it's all his fault, which I love how much
he
power.
He saved us a ton of money and problems.
Love how much power she gives Kevin.
Yes.
Like, you know, if he has as much power as Aaron Resner says he has, why would we get rid of him?
He'd fire the other 4 counselors and take over. But you know what? She was running on fiscal responsibility, yet she is, probably still is. I'm not sure if the Children's Legacy Center is still in operation, but she was on the board. And Stephanie Bridget granted $7 million from the Zog Fire settlement with PG&E to the Children's Legacy Center. How that ties into the Zog Fire settlement is beyond me, but nobody knows where that money went. And I was told Erin was going to tell us, she was going to look it up and tell us where that $7 million went. And another curious fact is they're over $2 million in the hole now. What are they doing with all their money?
Well, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think her position on that board was treasurer, is what I was told. And so if anybody can look into it, it should be her. But the thing is, I think somebody needs to email Nick Shirley, because Chris Street tried doing some reporting on just their public funding that is done and reported out on the internet, tried diving into it. They didn't want to comment. And he got a cease and desist letter from the Children's Legacy Center and Kimberly
really?
Johnson. Stop looking into our funding. You're a nonprofit using public funds. Why should he stop looking into it unless there's something to find? So I think somebody needs to contact Nick Shirley, because this is one of those situations. They have the location right here when you come into downtown, and they have another one over here by the courthouse. I never see anybody in either parking lot. And so maybe
we should give him a
Nick
raise.
Shirley should show up and start sitting by the door and see how many people come in and out of these buildings and what's being done for $7 million to go away and to be negative $2 million and all the other answers that don't want to get answered. But also maybe the state looked into some of their funding that is out there for the public to see. And maybe the state started looking into what the overhead cost is for Arch Collaborative and Children's Legacy Center and all the things Kimberly Johnson is tied to. And maybe the state said this would not be a wise investment with our dollars. And so maybe the reason that got shut down isn't because Kevin is all magnificent, all-knowing, all-powerful, but because the state saw it as a bad investment because these people don't know how to manage their money.
I've got an idea. March 28th is No King's Day. They're having a little protest down here. I'm sure it's in front of the city of Reading. Let's Make Kevin cry King's Day, and we'll be across the street.
We could host it in the parking lot to the Children's Legacy Center. It's always empty.
There you go. Kevin cry for King. Actually, that'd be a pretty good deal because I find him to be a very fair, honest person. So enough of picking on poor little Aaron Reesner. Let's pick on Joanna for a little while.
Okay.
I came up with the idea that Joanna, who ran the 2022 and 2024 elections, was the head honcho, just not in name, but she admitted that she ran those elections. She ran the least transparent elections out of 58 counties in the state of California. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Bars on the wall, show ID before you can enter. Makes you trust your counting. There's a lot of things that went on, and she is a local leader to run our local elections. Although I can't see where she ever led anything, and when she had the opportunity, she failed with a big F, in my opinion.
So I don't think Joanna is the root of all evil. I don't think she's the most terrible person in the world. And I think at some points she might even have some decent ideas or have some okay intentions. Here's where you cannot even argue that she does not deserve to be in that seat. Is the board voted, and she circumvented the will of the board and went to the Capitol to fight for a law that would undo what local control did when we voted to create our own ordinance and hand count in Shasta County.
That's right.
That is circumventing the will of the board, which in turn is circumventing the will of the people. And that is unforgivable. The emails that prove that she took part, an active part, in circumventing the board when it came to the Zuckerbucks thing.
Yes.
And then her response, rather than, you know what? I was under somebody else's leadership. I was doing what I needed to do, instead of having a mea culpa stance and, taking ownership.
I goofed up, but I won't do it again.
No,
Yes.
she stood in the corner and cried and balled up her fist and stomped her feet and threw a fit in front of the entire county to watch. And then was like, I'm the victim and everybody's mean to me. Again, that's the second thing for me that's completely unforgivable and not okay.
That's right.
If you're going to do something and you're going to make a decision as a leader, you stand by it and you own it. That's my gripe with Sheriff Bianco. If you knelt for BLM and you did it to keep your community safe, then own it. If you made a decision, own it. But when you stand up and you lie about it and you don't take ownership and you don't have the gall to own your own actions, you should not be a leader.
And if you can't believe everything a person says, what can you believe?
Right.
You just pick and choose the little bits that you believe. I think, it takes artificial intelligence to do that. And I found the one-word definition of artificial intelligence: liberalism.
Well, and here's the thing. I will say I use Grok over Google a lot now. But if you don't like the answers you're getting from Grok, and I've done this, Grok, stop answering me like a purple-haired liberal and give me a straight answer. And he goes, oh, well, I think what you meant to ask was this, and here's my answer. And he'll change the answer.
Is that Elon Musk's
Yes.
invention? I haven't done anything with it. I stay away from that stuff.
Well, I think we're getting to a point where it's going to be involved. It's going to be happening. And so we need to make sure that good people have a major stake in it and good people know how to utilize it. But here's the thing is all of these, because we did it through ChatGPT, we did it through Grok, and we did it through Google, Gemini, or whatever. We input all 58 counties and said, hey, give us a map for a tour date. We're going on tour with the governor candidate that I'm working with.
And his name is?
Louis Herms. He's running
I
independent
liked
for
him.
governor.
He was here in Reading. In fact, I think I told him a joke or something. He thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah. And he'll be back. We're coming back. But so we told ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and Grok, hey, put this in here and give us a. And they've got us going from here to here to here to here to here to here. And they don't factor in things like
The cost of gas.
Traffic or, you leave out of Weaverville to head over to the coast. There's going to be a 4-hour traffic thing for road construction that's been going on for 12 years because that's not waste, fraud, and abuse.
So you go up to Medford and you stop at Jamba Juice, and then you go down to Ashland, hit Dunkin' Donuts, and hit 20 on over to Humboldt.
Because those navigation systems aren't like funded by any of those businesses, right?
That's right. Yeah, I've hit
You
a
just
couple of
always
those.
have to go past a Starbucks to get where you're going, but
Yep.
Starbucks is a main sponsor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it proves that there's always going to need to be some sort of human element when it comes to AI. Like
Sure.
AI might be able to do some of the guesswork for you, but you have to have a human being in there controlling it behind the scenes.
And preferably a conservative. Hey, yeah. Anyway, getting back to Joanna, the least transparent elections run in the state of California, in my opinion. Who else has bars on the entrance, bars to keep you out while they're in there counting your votes? And I look at the way Clint Curtis opened it up is, come on in, we got donuts in the quarter. What do you want to do here? See, we're counting it right over here. They need help. We need to get some volunteers to get in for this next election. And boy, I'll tell you what, we need to keep Clint and we need to keep our elections transparent, because at the end of the day, all we want is honest elections. That's all we want.
Well, and I don't know if you've walked into the area that you can sit and observe on all the monitors and stuff. There is that gorgeous framed version of the Constitution right there on the wall on your right-hand side when you walk into that room. And I asked him, I was like, that is gorgeous, right? This is a government building. The Constitution should rule every decision we're making in here. It should be the most nonpartisan thing, right? Let's celebrate America. We're all Americans. Why does the American flag offend half the people in that room, right? So you walk in there, there's American flags everywhere, and there's this ginormous framed Constitution right there. Do you know what they told me? Clint didn't bring in that Constitution. It was in a storage closet.
Is that so?
Yeah.
And Kathy Darling Allen didn't like it. That would be my guess. Did you know something Trump is doing now? I didn't read the article, but he wants to turn the student loan program for college students over to the Department of Treasury instead of the Department of Education. Doesn't that sound logical?
Yeah. Well, and keeping it in the Department of Education right now when most
That's just
kids...
a blank check.
Well, not only that, but most graduates read at a 3rd to 6th grade reading level, can't do basic math.
Don't know what
Why do we
percentage
have the
means.
people that are teaching our kids not to know how to do math in charge of money? That makes zero sense to me.
Lots of money.
Yeah.
Well, I stumbled across a website that listed all the teachers, the professors out here at Shasta College and their salaries, and it was just astronomical. I couldn't believe how many professors they have out there. And some of them were only teaching 2 hours a week and getting a heck of a huge salary. And in case nobody, well, you'll know it by the time this goes up, but there was an 8.8 earthquake in Russia, East Russia, this morning. I believe it was about, I don't know. I woke up about 1 o'clock and looked at the computer. I keep my little computer. I take it to bed and I wake up and I'll look at it for a little bit and hopefully I can go back to sleep. And they were predicting tsunamis in Japan and Hawaii and Humboldt, the West Coast, all the way down to Peru, which didn't materialize, thankfully. But this was the 6th largest earthquake ever recorded.
Wow.
That's quite an earthquake. And I thought that was interesting. So I thought I'd bring that to your attention.
Well, so we're going to have to wrap up in a minute, but last week I was at the Capitol in Sacramento and I went down there to sit in some hearings and lobby some of our lawmakers. And I'm walking in and they make you go through this security checkpoint thing. And there's this group of people behind me and they're talking about how they're going to ask for 20-something million dollars. And, oh, it's not a big deal. Last time they came, they asked for 15, so they added 5. And I turned around and I said, well, good luck with that because every checkbook here is overdrawn. And she goes, nuh-uh. Education has lots of money. And I said, oh, they do? Then why are our kids failing so miserably? Right? And who's cashing that check? Because the state as a whole is broke. And China and the CCP own, what, 2/3 of our state now. So,
I went to Washington, D.C. about 15 years ago, spent 2 weeks back there. And I came back and I said, you know what they've done? the Washington Monument's close, and what they've done is they sent it over to China, help pay off our debt, and the one there now is made out of styrofoam. And people believe me. I thought that was pretty good. But I ran across this other little saying, and they're talking about, voter ID and how it disenfranchises people that can't get an ID, and on and on and on and on. But one comment says, well, if we can't vote in Mexico, why will we let Mexican vote in our country?
Right.
It's as simple as that. I think it should be the same way with immigration. If I go down to Mexico, they're not going to just let me stay as long and give me food stamps and maybe put me up in a nice motel and stuff. Why are we doing that? Our immigration laws should at least be as strong as the countries who are sending their criminals and poorly educated up here for us to raise.
Yeah. Well, and I got to spend some time with Tish Hyman. She was there speaking on AB 1998 is a bill coming out to protect girls and women and keep men out of public restrooms and locker rooms. And so she was here to speak on that, and I got to hang out with her for a little bit. She's from the Bronx, New York, and she's running for mayor of LA. And she was talking about one of the first things that you learn in the African American society community, is you always have ID on you. That way, if something happens to you, your family can be notified and you could be identified, because whether it's, violence brought on by where you live in the situation, or, something happens, then there's an accident, or, heaven forbid, there is a really bad officer, because they do exist. As a whole, I think our officers are great people and have good intentions, but there's bad people in every situation. They are taught to have something on them at all times. So she's like, this whole narrative that it disenfranchises the Black community from being able to vote is complete crap, because they're told as soon as you can walk around, you have some sort of identity on you, right?
Well, the thing is, if you're so stupid you can't get an ID, you're too stupid to vote anyway.
Well, but also, all the people who were voting against voter ID are the same ones that sure as heck made sure you had to have your real ID.
Oh,
you
yeah.
notice that?
I know of a guy who had to, and this guy's, he's probably 80, he and his wife now, and they waited to the last minute to get the real ID, and they had to go spend an afternoon in Sacramento just a week or two ago hunting down her birth certificate or her first marriage license or some damn thing like that. And they made it inconvenient for us having to get one, because that would separate us from aliens, illegal aliens and stuff. That was the reason for it. Well, why not make them get an ID that says they're not a citizen of the United States? Wouldn't that be a lot easier?
Right.
And if they don't have one, we'll just sick Tom Homan on them. He knows how to take care of them. He's going to start, what's he going to be, the TSA chief now?
Well, I fly out tomorrow morning, and I sure as heck hope that we've got ICE there at the airports helping things to be running, because Carl DeMaio posted this morning, 5 a.m. at San Diego airport, and lines are out the door and it's chaos. And so they said that until they can get TSA funded, they're going to send in ICE agents to assist. I'm all for it.
Well, the thing is, this is just, they're trying to blackmail the conservatives to give up the SAFE Act. Safeguarding American voter eligibility. That's what the SAFE Act is for.
Right.
They don't want it. So, but what does the TSA do? Have they stopped any terrorists? Have they done anything besides check you out when you go get your ticket?
Well, because I refused to go get my real ID, they made me wait for an hour and a half, and they swabbed my fingers to make sure I didn't have any drug residue. And then I was able to get on the plane. But I got a passport now. And you know what? Clint Curtis's office really deserves some recognition, because as a whole, they run very well. And his staff and his office, they're all very friendly, very kind. If you do not want to get your real ID and you want to travel, I went down there and did all of my passport stuff through them. And I paid $60 extra, $70 extra, or whatever for an expedited. I had it within a week. It came one day after my driver's license. So.
Okay, so that's it. We're wrapping it up. Stay tuned next week. We'll be here again.
Sounds good.
Oh, yeah. We've got a video from Victor David Hansen that I think you'll find quite interesting. I think it's a 9-minute video, so keep on here and listen to that. Bye.
We're in the second week of the so-called Iran war. That's a very surreal war. I don't think any of us have seen anything like it. It's only been 2 weeks and we're told that it's dragging on, that it's a forever war, that we're losing, that the Pentagon and the Trump administration had no plans. And yet when you look at Iran, this huge country, much, much bigger, much, much more populous than Iraq or Afghanistan, and it has no military left. And yet people say that it's unconquerable. It doesn't make any sense. Its output of missiles and drones at the Gulf petrol states and Israel has dropped by 90%. So what's going on? Hello, this is Victor Davis Hansen for the Daily Signal. We're in the second week, just completing it, of the so-called Iran war, this effort of the United States to bomb the theocracy into submission so they will cancel their missile and nuclear programs, and to champion the popular protest on the streets that have some potential to get rid of the regime itself. But it's a very surreal war. I don't think any of us have seen anything like it. It's only been 2 weeks and we're told that it's dragging on, that it's a forever war, that we're losing, that the Pentagon and the Trump administration had no plans. And yet, when you look at Iran, this huge country, much, much bigger, much, much more populous than Iraq or Afghanistan, and it has no military left. The Navy is dismantled. The Air Force is dismantled. The Republican Guard, all of these special contingents are under enormous assault. The command and control is destroyed. The missile defense is destroyed. And yet people say that it's unconquerable. It doesn't make any sense. Its output of missiles and drones at the Gulf petrol states and Israel has dropped by 90%. So what's going on? And I think part of the problem is that there's no media coverage. There are no embedded reporters because we are not on the ground. When you don't have a ground fight in enemy territory, you don't have American embedded journalists traveling with the troops that can give diverse opinions, accurate accounts. All we have are the journalists who are allowed into Iran, and that happens to be, guess who? CNN. And they report the party line that comes out of the Iranian theocracy. Again, an air war is very hard to cover because pilots can't talk to anybody. They're at bases that are secluded and secure. They get in the planes, they fly their mission, and they go home. And there's no way a journalist can really get to them or talk to them. So all of our information comes from 3 sources. The Iranian propaganda machine, which is completely not credible. It's about as credible as the Hamas body count that we saw 2 years ago. Or CNN and a few other Western but very biased news outlets that only Iran will let in based on the conditions which they impose on them, and the Israelis. And the only thing you can find out about this war that's official comes from the Israeli government and some Israeli newspapers, the Israeli Times or Israel Times or the Jerusalem Post. So there's a lot of misinformation about the actual damage that we're inflicting. And then there's the attitude toward the war. The attitude. In World War II, everybody was behind the United States. We did a lot of things that we regretted. The Japanese internment. We made a lot of mistakes strategically. Okinawa, Tarawa were disasters. The B-17 bombing program cost 40,000. But everybody basically said, we don't have to be perfect to be good. We're going to win our war because our cause is better than the alternative. That's gone now. It's gone. Even in the first Gulf War of 1990-91, people were united. But the Democratic Party is not the Democratic Party of Bill Clinton. It's a socialist party. That's a euphemism. It really does not believe in traditional America. And it believes that if it can convey a sense that America is losing, then two things follow it. For some, it means that the November midterms might give power back to the Democrats, and therefore it's in their self-interest to magnify the debacle, so to speak, or the tragedy, or that we're losing. And then there's others that actually, in the Democratic Party, and I'm talking about the Squad, or they actually are sympathizing with the enemy. If you think I'm crazy, there was a protest out in New York where we had resident aliens, students here on student visa, naturalized citizens, and what were they screaming? Shame on the United States. Why we're at war, and who were they protesting on behalf of? Iran, the Hezbollah people, terrorists, and the Hamas terrorists. And so this is a very bizarre thing. And in addition to that, we've got the element of anti-Semitism, where we have the Democratic Party now, its base is just unavowedly anti-Semitic. And I'll just make a casual observation. I will predict that you will not have a Jewish American presidential candidate, or vice presidential candidate for the foreseeable future. It is impossible to nominate anybody with a Jewish background on a national ticket in the Democratic Party. And you can see that as the Democrats look at this war. They have bought hook, line, and sinker the idea that Benjamin Netanyahu is pulling the strings of the Donald Trump puppet, and tiny Israel is getting into this war, despite the fact that all 7 prior presidents to Trump himself said on the record that Iran would not get a nuclear weapon on its watch, and that they would take measures to ensure that it didn't, and didn't for the future. None of them did that. None of them did that. And so when you look at the first Gulf War, it was 42 days, but only 4 days were on the ground. It was a magnificent victory, but 300 people were killed. We've lost about, 13 casualties, fatalities. 300, that was considered amazing at the time. And they overran the country, but it took 42 days to disable it. And they left Saddam Hussein in power, and they had to go back. And so that was considered a stellar success. But this is a much more dramatic victory. I mean, we've only been here 2 weeks, and the much more formidable enemy is in shambles. And we're left with just three alternatives. Either the regime is going to be replaced now or in the next few weeks, as the people come out of their homes and see what their country is like, and what the theocracy caused and what it did to them. Or there's going to be some Venezuelan solution where the strong man will come forward. Or maybe that won't happen at all, and the United States, under political pressure, will stop. But if it stops, they have destroyed the Iranian military and its nuclear and missile program for years. So this was all preferable to the situation pre-war, in which Iran still was working on the bomb, still had 3,000 missiles and more drones, and was boasting that it was going to, at any time it wanted, close the Straits of Hormuz. And they've tried it, and they will not be successful. Put it all together, this is a surreal war. What is actually happening is not being reported, and there's an alternate reality that's been constructed by the left that sees this war as politically advantageous to its agenda to recapture power in the United States. If it convince us, the American people, that A, we're losing, B, we may deserve to lose, C, it's all Donald Trump's fault, and this war will be beneficial in denying him the Republican majorities in Congress in about 8 months. Thank you very much. This is Victor Davis Hanson for the Daily Signal.